Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐶𝐄𝐓 podcast, your map to the mystical, your key to the sacred, and your guide back home to yourself. I'm Eileen, a writer, a spiritual coach, energy healer, and slow living witch. This podcast is your invitation to explore a world where the mundane and the sacred intertwine. It's a haven for those ready to take the first steps into the realms of magic and mystery, providing a safe space for you to embark on your own enchanted journey towards healing and self-discovery. Here, I'll unveil the whispers of the mystical, the rituals often hidden in plain sight, and I'll engage in sacred conversation intended to stir your soul and lead you back into your power. I'm all about demystifying woo and witchcraft. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or simply woo curious, I'm so delighted you've decided to join me on this journey. Let's make magic. Hello, woo crew, and welcome back to another episode of the 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐶𝐄𝐓 podcast. I am your host, Eileen, and I'm here today with a solo episode for you. I want to talk about something that I started talking about last week in my email newsletter. I got taken out last month by an illness. It started at home and I was traveling on the Thursday, and I thought that every day I kept being like, okay, this is the peak. I'm going to get better. Tomorrow's going to feel better. But I just kept getting worse. And by the time Saturday rolled around, I was laid out on my friend's couch and in her spare room, sicker than I've been in, I think, probably a decade. My back out, a recurring injury for me, and the coughing that I was doing a few days prior to the Saturday tweaked my back, and every time I coughed, it hurt worse. I couldn't really sit. I was uncomfortable in all the positions. I was completely unable to help with anything. I couldn't help cook. I couldn't help walk the dogs. I just had to lay there. And somewhere in the middle of feeling that way, there was a part of me that felt relief. So I want to talk about this because it's something that comes up for so many of us. Before I got sick, actually, for a few years now, I've been saying that every time I get sick, I'm just sick enough to feel fatigued, not feel well, but not sick enough to quote unquote justify taking time off to rest. And I jokingly said to a few people over the last few years, I just want to get sick enough to not do anything for a few days. And this story is something that echoes what a client once said to me. She was sharing with me, catching up in a one-on-one session, that she'd been out with appendicitis and she'd actually ended up in hospital for a few days. And she said to me, all I felt was relief, and I wished I could stay longer. And I remember in that moment feeling so heartbroken for her, but also recognizing that sense of relief, that her body had come in and taken her out of her daily life forcibly, forcing her to take time to slow down and giving her the ability to be cared for and to receive that care. And I don't want to live in a world where I feel as though I need to get sick or be injured in order to take the time to slow down and rest. And yet that is the world we live in. I don't know a single woman who fully feels, actually I shouldn't say a single woman, I do know some, but I know that most women I speak to, myself included, really struggle to take the time, take the rest they need without guilt, to ask for and receive help and support, unless they actually can't, right? So for me, this lesson, as I lay on my friend's couch and she took such tender care of me, was this ability to surrender. this week of being ill, actually it was 10 full days of not feeling well, really gave me some perspective. I, for a few of those days, wasn't even well enough to like read my book or watch a show. I just lay there, and I had to let go of some of the control that I was holding. Control around things in my business. I didn't get an email written. I missed putting out a podcast episode. If you're a regular listener of this show, you may have noticed a few weeks ago that no episode came out on the Monday, and that's only the second time I've ever missed an episode. And to surrender to receive, to allow my friend to feed me, to massage my back, to tend to me, to bring me what I needed when I needed it. And she took such tender care of me. And in that surrender, I felt this huge shift in my being. I was grateful for the illness despite really not feeling well and wanting to feel better. There was a gratitude of recognition of the lesson that was here for me. Right? The month preceding this, the months and months preceding it have been full. Building a business is no small feat. Working part-time while you build a business is no small feat. Prior to leaving midwifery is no small feat. I've said to a few people, I don't feel like I've had a real break for years. I've gone on vacation. I have definitely given myself some breathing space around my work, but it's always present. And there's always a sense that maybe I should be doing something more. And this was the first time in ever since I've had my business that I said, okay, I don't actually need to or want to be doing more right now. This is okay. This is my choice. And I'm not going to think about what I should or could be posting or writing. I'm not going to think about what I should or could be recording. I'm not going to worry about my business. I'm going to trust that it will be there when I return. And I'm going to let myself surrender into this moment and be taken care of. I'm sharing this story because I know that at least a few of you are going to resonate with this sense of not being able to truly stop and rest and take time for yourself unless you've earned it, which never comes. And so unless you're actually truly unwell, unless you're sick or injured and cannot, the cultural programming runs so deep. It ties this idea of resting after we've done enough into our very marrow. But enough never comes, right? And so we keep going and we push through and we ignore the body's whispers until it's shouting. And it might shout with illness. When we slow down, how many people say, I go on vacation, I get sick, and it's like the body's like, oh, okay, we're going to really slow her down. Or it might look like appendicitis. It might look like some sort of injury that occurs or a recurring symptom that it actually forces you to pause and look at what's going on for you. The collapse that happens when we do finally stop is not real rest, it's exhaustion. And so many of us are only allowing ourselves to rest in that state of collapse, in that state of exhaustion. Whereas true rest is chosen intentionally, whether or not it's convenient. It's this receptive state, it's restorative, and it's a real practice of trust, of trusting yourself, that you've got you through your rest, of trusting that things will hold, of trusting that you're allowed to stop and that your worth is not tied to your output. And that's really hard to do. Part of this experience of rest, and I feel like I'm taking a little bit of a side road, but these ideas are really connected. I have no idea if you can all hear my cat, but she's losing her mind at my window right now. Part of this experience of being sick and of having this real big awareness or realization around the need to surrender and to truly be still and stop my doing, stop my braining, all of that, was also this awareness that I had on coming back from that vacation of the real need for deeper and longer integration. So integration and rest are topics that go hand in hand, because part of what integration is rest. I feel like it's a bit of a buzzword these days, which is great. We're talking about it, but I weave it into my programs in Wise Wild Woman Mentorship. We take the last week of every month as an integration week. We have no calls. I've woven the same thing into Unleash Your Inner Witch to allow time to process the shifts that are happening. And yet there was this part of me that's like, but what is it? What is this integration? And it is the process in our bodies, in our nervous system, by which experience becomes change, becomes wisdom, in which, whether it's a powerful ceremony, a course, a really potent journaling session, awareness, maybe it's a networking event. I had one of those right after being sick. That's really potent and powerful. Maybe it's a retreat weekend. But the transformation, the revelations that occur in these powerful moments, or these shifts, or these growth moments, they happen at a very surface level. They happen in the brain. They can feel really deep and soul shaking, but they don't stay with us if we don't give ourselves time for integration. These big expansive moments, and I don't know if you watched or listened to my episode with Diana a few months ago, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, where she showed that like kid's toy that was like the ball that opens and closes, and talked about how our nervous system, if it's in this state of collapse where the ball's like clunked down and we're just kind of moving in and out, because our nervous systems aren't static, of this kind of collapse spot to just a little bit expanded, but mostly collapse and in and out from there. And then we have these big transformative experiences like a retreat weekend or a powerful breathwork ceremony, for instance, where we expand that nervous system. It's not ready to handle that expansion. And we take this expanded, very tender nervous system right back into our daily life on Monday, for instance, or maybe we give ourselves a day to integrate, but we're kind of still doing because we're back home in our regular environment. And what happens is this experience collapses right back in on itself, and we go right back to where we were. And we wonder why it doesn't stick. And so we need to give ourselves gentle, supportive experiences that help slowly open that nervous system. But also, when we have those big experiences, those transformative moments, we need more time than we think we do. And I was reminded of this really powerfully. So back to my story. I was ill. I arrived on the Thursday. I was starting to feel better on the Tuesday. On the Friday, there was a big networking event put on by some coaches I used to work with in Victoria, a women entrepreneur networking event. And it was the evening, Friday evening, and all day Saturday was talks, speakers, high vibe energy, and really enjoyable and a lot. And on the Sunday, I had the day to myself, and I walked in the park and I did some journaling, and I went to my friend's house where I was staying. She was out for the day, and I sat down and I started working, and I was so excited. I was writing emails. I was getting back-end stuff done. I was like, oh my God, I'm back. I feel well. I had this illness. I rested. I recovered. I had this high vibe experience. Now I've got all this energy to blast back into productivity with. And then I flew home the next day, and I gave myself the day to okay, I'm going to land. I'm going to get myself unpacked. I'm going to do laundry, and then I'll be good to go. And I wasn't. I got nothing much done on the Monday. I got nothing much done on the Tuesday. The Wednesday, I was starting to be like, what is going on? And what I realized that week is that I needed more grace, more spaciousness, and more time to actually integrate not only the awarenesses, the growth, the transformation that my sickness gifted me, but also the growth, the connection, the energy that networking weekend with so many connections to so many different women had brought me. The Sunday I was riding the energy. The Monday I crashed. And it wasn't until Thursday that I started to come back online. And this is the honest part of this, is that integration takes longer than is convenient. Again, in our modern world, it takes longer than you think it should. It always takes longer than the experience that gave you the growth or the transformation. And we live in this culture that wants us to get, the download without having to digest it, or the transformation and growth of spring and summer without having the fallow period of autumn and winter. But the fallow period is absolutely essential. As we talk about here on this show all the time, it is the cyclical nature of our bodies, of the earth. We cannot have the bloom without the rot. And the rot has to come first because it nourishes the bloom, and it also has to come again after. And so we have this culture that, again, prioritizes or glorifies the spring and the summer energies and really tells us that we don't actually need autumn and winter, but we do, because that time, that fallow time, is when the roots get to dig deep. It's when the nervous system gets to catch up and actually rewire with this new information within it. It gets to adapt and shift. And it looks like, in practice, gentler days, naps, slow walks, more quiet time, letting yourself feel kind of lost or spacious without rushing to fill it. Maybe it's some journaling or meditation. It's not a time for consuming more. Notice what's moving in you, and it can feel like being more tired than you feel like you, quote unquote, should be. I was getting lots of good sleep. I'm like, why am I just wanting to sleep all day? That's why. You might feel more irritable or less tolerant of things in your environment. You might feel like being alone. Solitude is a really beautiful piece of integration. Maybe you're not as interested in socializing. You're wanting to say no to things you might usually say yes to. That's wisdom. That's wisdom, and that's part of the integrative practice. So as you listen to this in my story, I'm curious for you to take a moment and think about what you might currently be integrating. Or maybe even reflecting back on some larger experiences and the time you gave yourself on the other side. I often am like, I'll give myself the day I get home, and then by the next day I'll be good to go, and I'm never good to go. And I always feel like that's something wrong with me, and I'm broken. And I'm starting to recognize, and this experience has really been helpful, that there's nothing wrong with me. I used to be able to go and push through because I was so good at ignoring my body and what she was telling me. And the more I do this work, the deeper I go, the harder it gets to ignore my body. And that's inconvenient in this world. But it is absolutely essential. And especially as we move into the bright half of the year, right? We're just on this threshold of Beltane, Bealtaine. We celebrated in ceremony last week. If you joined me, thank you. If you didn't, you can grab that replay and treat yourself to some quiet, some beautiful practice between now and ideally the new moon on May 16th. That's when our ancestors very well may have celebrated Beltane, the second new moon after the spring equinox, which this year is the 16th of May. And Beltane marks the entry into the bright half or the light half of the year, the action kind of half of the year, the more masculine energy, the doing. And we see it in, the days are longer. We might be getting less sleep. Everybody's gearing up to have all the summer plans. I don't know about you, but half my friends are booked out through July already. And it's so important, especially if we're doing things like going on retreats or attending women's festivals. I get to speak at the Wild Roses Women's Festival again this year. I'm so excited. But it's so important that we create space for ourselves during these busy Beltane months for integration, and more of it than we feel like we're gonna need. Because otherwise, when we get to October 31st and we enter the dark half of the year again, we are going to go into collapse instead of rest. So ask yourself these questions. And again, we can only do this work at a gentle pace. And we still have to live in this world. We still have to go to the job, take care of the kids. We have responsibilities. We are in a physical reality. I'm not suggesting we ignore that. But what would it mean to move through life at a pace where you don't need to get sick to slow down? What would that mean? What would that look like? And again, it doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be dropping all your responsibilities and running away to the woods, though that can be fun too. But it can be, one morning a week with no agenda, or saying no to one thing that doesn't light you up, or building in that day, or preferably several, of integration after any significant experience before jumping headlong back into the daily grind. And again, you might have to go back to work on the Monday, but how can you give yourself some space and time to integrate? Maybe it's like no podcasts this week, right? Not consuming. You can get lost in a book maybe, but letting yourself just have some downtime in between the moments. Maybe it's driving with classical music instead of, again, a podcast or consuming, or maybe it's driving in silence. Finding those little micro moments where you can weave in some quiet, some stillness, and practicing that listening to your body before your body has to escalate things to get you to listen. So yeah, I want to circle back around to the gift of being sick for a whole vacation. So I know that I don't want to wait until I'm forced to stop, to slow down and let people I love tend to me. And I don't want to feel like I need to earn my rest. And I don't want that for you either. The gift of spending a whole vacation sick and in pain is one that I never would have looked for, but I am so grateful to receive it nonetheless. Whatever you're integrating right now, or maybe it's something that you didn't get a chance to integrate and you want to return to, give it more time than you think it needs. Let yourself go to bed early and maybe sleep in a little late. Trust the fallow period. Trust the quiet. Trust the solitude you're craving. Your body knows what it's doing. And again, if you missed our ceremony for Beltane last week, you can pop to my website, �my_LUMINOUS_LIFE.ca/Beltane, BELTAINE, and grab the replay. And carve out a little bit of time for yourself between now and May 16th to drop in. Put it in your calendar. Trust me. These ceremonies offer transformation, but they also offer a space of integration as well. They're the sacred pause in the onrushing world that we are a part of, and a chance to connect back with the rhythms of your body, of the earth, and of the sacred sisterhood to which you belong. Okay, Woo Crew, that's all for this week. As always, if you enjoyed the show, it helps ever so much if you leave a rating, a review, subscribe on YouTube. If you're on Spotify and you're not following, hit that follow button. I was recently alerted by Spotify that I have fewer followers for the number of listens that I have. compared to other shows in my category, and that more followers will promote the algorithm to show this show to more people. So if you like any or all of my episodes, please make sure you're following. And as always, I'd love to hear thoughts around this. Come tell me a story. Come find me over on Instagram at @IamEileenMarch. Send me an email, Eileen@mylimitlesslife.ca, and let me know if there's anything that you would like me to speak to. That's all for this week. I'll be back next week with a guest episode, and I hope you have a beautiful and restful beginning of your May, your Beltane season. Bye for now.